I hope everyone is doing well today. I wanted to talk about something that was on my mind. I hope that uh, you can hear me clearly. I don't have the microphone for the setup that I would want to have, and it's raining here, and so I know there's a lot of ambient noise in the background, but it just is what it is. And I figure that for those who need to hear the message, they'll hear it. And could someone leave me a comment? I mean, just to let me know if my audio is fine or not. 'Cause I don't want to be assaulting anybody's ears while I'm trying to record from a desktop in an open room, and it's possibly as quiet as it's going to get. But these are the things that are on my mind, and I'm trying to come here and speak more while I can about what I think is important, what I might say to help the next person. Um, our struggles don't have to be the same, our situations don't have to be the same, but something might light a spark in you, or you might be able to resonate with it and it may help you somehow. So let me get on to what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about the danger of not knowing who you are. And I want to go into just a little detail about it, but not knowing who you are is dangerous because it leaves the door open for others to define you. They give you ideas of who you are and how you should live, and slowly you internalize their words. You form judgments about yourself based solely on their perceptions and their insecurities. This is a terrible way to live, I know firsthand. I like to think that I followed my own path, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I can tell that now that a lot of the doubt and insecurity and indecision came from what I was told about myself versus what I thought about myself. The toxicity I grew up in, that environment was almost like it was specifically designed to make me just lose self awareness. And I don't ever recall a day of being told that I was a good person or I could have dreams or I was good at something. It was always something to tear me down. And like I say at the time, gaslighting wasn't even a phrase that was known, but that's what it was. It was a systematic tearing down of another person. That person was me, in order to make people who felt bad about themselves feel better. And you'll find that a lot of people will do that. They will do things to stop you from being who you are based on the fact that they're not working on who they are. And that logic is never, I definitely didn't understand it when I was younger. And I definitely don't understand it now because there's so much power in your mind. And to even think that you have to demean or belittle or disintegrate another person's self worth in order to achieve some feeling of, I guess I'm trying to describe it, but I don't know what it's, I've never done this. I don't know what this is. Where you break down other people to make yourself feel better. It doesn't even sound right coming out of my mouth. But I guess that's why they call it a dog eat dog world. Anyway, back to the topic. And I was saying it's a terrible way to live. So you want to deny all the voices inside you that are not yours. And there are some that are there. You're not aware of them because you don't actually hear them because they're there in your subconscious. Never accept others' opinions about you. You are enough to define yourself. So let's stop right here just for a moment and think about the thing I keep talking about, which is neurotherapy, neuroplasticity, neuroscience. But it's the thing that, let's call it the open loop self. An identity system that hasn't completed its wiring due to trauma, neglect, or conditioned dependency on external validation. It's when your brain doesn't have a clear internal map of selfhood. Because I always said, I'm not self conscious. I don't have low self esteem. I don't have a sense of self. And I've always said that. But I couldn't really define what that meant until recently, of me just, I tried to live by that truth. And it's only recently I've been able to just delve into what that really means. And it's because I was seeking cues from the outside to fill in the blanks. So this is not a character flaw, it's a survival strategy. But survival is not the same thing as sovereignty. Your brain, wired for belonging, will absorb beliefs, behaviors, and identities of those you fear losing, even if they are cruel to you, even if they love you fullest. If you don't consciously train your mind to say, this is who I am, it will default to a neural scaffolding built by the voices of teachers, parents, partners, and cultural conditioning. That's the danger I'm speaking about. You become a patchwork of projections. So all this time I'm thinking I'm proactive and I don't quit and I keep going and I'm doing my best and I'm simply a patchwork of projections. Other people's opinions running subconsciously in the back of my head. The thing about it being subconscious, you're not fully aware of it. Well, that's why they call it subconscious. But as I was saying, in neuroscience, this kind of identity diffusion is linked to to low prefrontal activation, meaning your conscious brain isn't in the driver's seat. Instead, your limbic system is making short-term decisions based on approval, not authenticity. You don't have to understand a lot of science jargon to understand that is not good, because that means that you are not at the helm of your own ship. You are not in the driver's seat. You are not the captain of your own ship. And that's not good. This is a blueprint of indoctrination. The repeated presentation of an idea reinforced through emotional pressure until it feels like truth. The subconscious doesn't filter what is right or true, it filters what is familiar. So when people repeatedly tell you you're too sensitive, you're not good with money, you're not leadership material, your neural circuitry starts storing that data in the hippocampus and looping it in the amygdala every time something similar occurs. Now, I read these words and I'm familiar with them, but they trip over my tongue sometimes. But I get the general gist, and I think if you listen to enough of these, you will also, because it's very simple. It's like I said, don't let the science throw you, because it's real simple what it's saying here. Over time, other people's ideas become your inner monologue. Neuroplasticity disrupts this by helping you create counter impressions, emotionally charged alternative truths that rewire the subconscious by making you the source of narrative control. Now you're in the driver's seat. When you're the source of narrative control of your own life, you are in the driver's seat. You can use bilateral stimulation, affirmation based hypnosis. I'm going to get into, I want to start making those, uh, most definitely. Mirror rewiring, and cognitive emotional rescripting to make the brain unavailable for inherited shame. That slow internalization of you taking on their words as truth, other people's opinions as truth, and forming judgments about yourself based solely on their perceptions and insecurity, it's the long game of neural imprinting. A guilt trip repeated during your most impressionable years And it just, if it's going on for a long time, it tends to compound. I say the earlier it starts, the harder it is to deal with it, because if it started at 10, you live to be 100 and you're still carrying it if it has not been addressed. It's not always loud, but it's consistent, and the brain doesn't distinguish between fact and emotional repetitive feedback. That's why you may logically know you're capable and worthy and valuable, yet your emotional circuitry is still playing the loop of, what if I'm too much? What if I'm not good enough? What if they leave? What if it doesn't work out? These loops are trauma formed and neurochemically reinforced through cortisol, adrenaline, and repeated stress-based wiring, which those three words looped together describe my childhood. So the whole thing about the inner child, I definitely know that exists because it's always there with you. It doesn't go anywhere. The world just becomes more front and center in your face, but that internal longing is still there because it hasn't been addressed. This is why I say that regular affirmations do not work. You have to get to the root of the problem, which is to go to your subconscious and address these issues that are acting as a blocker to who you really are. And it's not that hard to do. You just have to focus on it. And it doesn't take long. It's not like going to school, it's like a textbook. It's actually, it's something that you should want to do for yourself because it's for the betterment of you. Neuroplasticity can teach you how to detect when you're reacting from borrowed insecurity. Repeat that. Neuroplasticity can teach you how to detect when you're reacting from borrowed insecurity. It can rebuild your inner voice architecture through daily rewiring cues. It can create brain cues that immediately trigger your core identity when you're being pulled into someone else's story. Now, let's not downplay it. Living from someone else's script is like a mental death sentence. You're animated, but you're not alive. You're productive, but not present. Your thoughts become a courtroom of invisible judges who you never voted for. And it's exhausting. I know from experience, it's exhausting. It is exhausting to live a life built on emotional editing, constantly afraid of being too loud, too proud, too opinionated, or not enough. And the horrible thing about it is it's going on in the subconscious. It's not like a voice is saying this to you and you're like, have enough reason to still be like, no way, get out of here with that. It's like a subliminal. It's a subliminal. So let's get tactical. In neuroplasticity, this is called subconscious pruning, which is identifying neural patterns, thoughts, beliefs, internal scripts that did not originate from your values and removing them like weeds, not with willpower, but with replacement. Here's how you do that. I call this a trigger identification drill. Notice the next time you feel small, hesitant, or like you need to shrink, and pause. In that moment, pause and ask yourself, whose voice is that? The pattern interruption cue is that, which is the rewire. I'm sorry, not the rewire, but it's the beginning of the rewire, I would say. This is the interruption, the correction of it. Say, that's not mine. That's not now. That's not the truth I choose. And this creates a chemical pause in the stress loop. Now, the rewiring loop is immediately followed with a neural reinforcement cue, such as, I have the right to take up space, my truth is allowed to be loud, and repeat it with your hand over your chest, just something to anchor it to you somatically, to make your nervous system feel it. By practicing this daily, you begin to desaturate your inner world from borrowed beliefs and unworthy thought patterns. The brain craves definition, but most people outsource their definition because they were never given permission to define themselves. That's what I remember most about everything. I was never given it's like almost like someone was trying to drive me crazy, which was my crazy parent, to keep me from knowing my truth. But I came to know it. Thank God I came to know it anyway. Here's the hard truth: you don't need evidence to define yourself, you need decision. In neuroplasticity, you hardwire that decision into your subconscious through identity-based hypnosis scripts. You repeat high-frequency identity statements during brainwave transitions, which is like the alpha to the theta states, and lock them in. I won't go into detail about all of that right now, but this work, this method, because there's more to it, teaches your brain to look inward first, not outward. And when the neural scaffolding of I am enough to define myself is reinforced enough times, your brain becomes immune to manipulation. Not arrogant, immune. In the past, every time I judged or met or defended myself with logic about the things that were said and done to hurt me, I was always told I was wrong, to shut up and just, I didn't know anything. She was the parent. And you'll find people who don't use that terminology, but what they're saying is, I know more about you than you know about you. And that is insane. And as a matter of fact, run from those people. Yeah, run from those people. So I want to give you some daily identity rewiring affirmations. You should repeat these each morning and at night, um, just before you go to sleep or just after waking. And here they are. My definition is not up for debate. I do not require permission to exist in my full truth. I do not owe anyone a diluted version of me. I do not owe anyone a diluted version of me. Their opinions are not my architecture. My inner voice is the only one allowed on the building crew of my self-worth. I really like that one. My inner voice is the only one allowed on the building crew of my self-worth. So a lot of this is to do with, like I said, what I'm speaking about obviously is trauma bonds, but you may or may not have trauma bonds. It may be something else that you're dealing with, but this is a trauma bond information, or I'm sorry, trauma bond interruption for those who, like me, have been dealing with that, trying to disrupt that phase and eradicate it totally from my life. The trigger phrase is, I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. You can override that. This is what you tell yourself. That's not confusion. That's me detoxing from false identities. I've outgrown the voices that made me doubt myself. Let clarity scare them. I belong to me now. This builds new neural pathways through contradiction. Every time you feel tempted to conform, you install an opposite charge. I want to leave you with one last thing to recap what I said. There is nothing more dangerous than a mind that does not belong to itself. And there's nothing more powerful than a person who reclaims their neural authority. You are not your conditioning. You are not your childhood shame. You are not the echoes of insecure people trying to mold you into their comfort zone. You are self-rewiring, self-defining, a sovereign being. And your brain will follow your voice if you lead it consistently. Every time you reject a borrowed belief, you're not just healing, you're rebuilding. Remember that. It doesn't take perfection. It takes showing up and steadily applying it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be with intention. You're not just thinking differently, you're becoming different. Now that's neuroplasticity in action. Reclaiming the right to think for yourself, feel for yourself, and live from the inside out. So I hope that this helped someone. I know it, like I said, I'm speaking from my own experience, and I like the work that I'm doing on me. And I didn't think I'd ever be able to say that. I've been to some low times here, some rough times. Still not out of the woods, but I feel like my power is still with me. And I wasn't feeling that before. So you may have to replay this video just to listen to it and do it as many times as you have to, just to let it sink in. Have a great day today.